My name is Lorenza R. Scott, and I was 29 years old when I discovered that the man I loved had already planned to leave me for another woman, until my startup became worth $5.2 million. The bottle of Dom Perignon felt cold against my hand. Condensation collected beneath my fingers as I climbed the final flight of stairs to our apartment. 3 years. 3 years of coding until sunrise. 3 years surviving on instant noodles. 3 years wondering whether I had sacrificed my 20s for a dream that would never pay off. That morning, everything changed. The acquisition documents were finally signed. $5.2 million. The transfer would arrive within 2 weeks. For the first time in years, I wasn't a struggling software developer chasing an impossible dream. I had actually built something valuable. More than the money, I couldn't wait to tell Ethan. I imagined him smiling, laughing, telling me he had always believed in me. I wanted one moment where I felt like we had survived everything together. I unlocked the apartment door. Ethan? He stood in the kitchen, aggressively scrubbing a frying pan. Without turning around, he sighed. "You forgot to take the trash out again." His voice wasn't angry. It was worse. Disappointed. The kind of disappointment reserved for someone expected to fail. "Tomorrow's garbage day. The hallway's going to smell because you're always distracted by that little computer project." "I'm sorry." I quietly closed the door behind me. I was at the attorney's office. He laughed without humor. "What happened this time?" "Did somebody sue you?" "Should we call my parents again?" "Lorenza, I swear, one of these days, you're going to realize pretending to run a startup isn't a career." The words landed exactly where he intended. 3 years earlier, they would have broken me. Now, I simply looked at him. We sold. The pan stopped moving. What? The company. The software. The intellectual property. I slowly placed the champagne bottle on the kitchen island. "It sold this morning." His expression didn't change immediately. Then I added one sentence. "The purchase price was $5.2 million. Silence. Heavy. Complete. When Ethan finally turned around, it was like watching another person step into his body. The frustration disappeared. His shoulders relaxed. His eyes widened. "Baby." I almost flinched. He hadn't called me that in nearly 2 years. "Did you just say 5 million? 5.2. His mouth fell open. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed through the kitchen before he rushed across the room and wrapped both arms around me. "I knew you could do it. I always believed in you. We actually made it." His voice cracked with emotion. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, held me tighter than he had in months. I remained perfectly still, because only 6 days earlier, I had overheard him telling his sister that living with me felt like raising an unemployed teenager. Last month, he joked at dinner that maybe my laptop contributed more to the household than I did. Now, suddenly, I was his genius, his partner, his future. "We should celebrate." He grabbed the champagne. "We have to call my parents." "We should look at that house overlooking the lake." "We need to meet a financial advisor." "Our portfolio." "Our future." Every sentence began with "we." 5 minutes earlier, there hadn't been a we. Only my failures, my forgotten trash, my impossible dream. I forced myself to smile. "You're right. We should celebrate." He kissed me again. This time, I felt absolutely nothing. Over the following 2 weeks, Ethan transformed completely. 3 days after the money reached my account, he resigned from his job. Not after discussing it, simply announced he wanted to manage our investments full-time. He started browsing luxury homes, talking about sports cars, posting photographs of us together for the first time in almost a year. One caption read, proud of the empire we built together. I stared at the screen for a long time. Empire. He had spent years mocking the very company that supposedly built our future together. Then, one sleepless night, everything changed. Around 3 in the morning, unable to quiet my mind, I wandered into the living room. Old habits returned whenever I felt overwhelmed. I paced. 3 steps toward the window, 3 steps back. Eventually, I sat on the sofa and opened Reddit. Normally, I browsed software communities, startup discussions, technical forums. Instead, I found myself reading relationship posts. Maybe because success had strangely made me feel more alone than failure ever had. A brand new post appeared. Trapped with a female loser who suddenly got rich. How do I get around a prenup? My thumb froze. I opened it. The first sentence stole my breath. I've been dating a complete loser for 3 years. I read the title again, then a third time. The wording was different. The details weren't. I've been dating a complete loser for 3 years. She sleeps all day after pretending to code. I carried the bills. I was about to leave her for my ex-girlfriend, Vanessa. Then her stupid app sold for exactly $5.2 million. Exactly. Not approximately. Exactly. My heartbeat slowed instead of speeding up. That frightened me more than anything. The next paragraph was worse. Now I have to pretend I'm proud of her until I figure out how to beat the prenup. I deserve half after wasting years supporting her. Can I argue emotional damages? I laughed, a quiet, hollow laugh. 3 years earlier, Ethan insisted we sign the prenup. At the time, he earned $60,000 a year. I earned almost nothing. He claimed he needed protection from my startup debts if everything collapsed. I signed because I trusted him. Neither of us imagined the agreement would someday protect me instead. He certainly hadn't bothered reading every clause. I kept scrolling. The comments had already begun. Sounds like you're using her. You're describing financial abuse. If you want it out before the money, you don't deserve the money. Instead of backing down, he argued with them. You don't understand. I invested years into her. She would have been nothing without me. There has to be some legal loophole. There it was. Not guilt, not regret, strategy. I quietly captured screenshots, the post, every comment, every reply, then archived the page through multiple online services in case he deleted it. Only after everything had been saved did I respond. One sentence. You don't. The prenup you demanded protects the female loser. I pressed post, then closed the application. I wasn't angry. Anger requires surprise. This simply confirmed what my instincts had whispered for months. I walked into our bedroom. Ethan slept peacefully, one arm stretched across the mattress where I normally lay. He looked almost innocent. For a moment, I remembered the man who used to bring me coffee while I coded, the man who once believed in impossible dreams, or perhaps the man I imagined existed. Quietly, I packed one suitcase, my laptop, external hard drives, passport, several changes of clothes, every backup containing the company source code. I removed my engagement ring, placed it beside his wallet, then walked into the kitchen. The champagne still stood unopened, warm now, pointless. I found a legal pad, wrote slowly. I found the Reddit post. I know about Vanessa. I know you plan to leave before the acquisition. You were right about one thing. The prenup protects exactly what you wanted it to protect. Everything I built remains mine. Do not contact me. I folded the page once, placed it beneath the champagne bottle, then called a car. While waiting in the hallway, I realized there was one final thing left to do. Not revenge, Truth. I created a new family group. Participants: my parents, his parents, my older sister, his younger brother. Without hesitation, I attached every screenshot, the original post, his comments admitting he wanted the money before leaving, the section discussing Vanessa, the part asking strangers how to destroy the prenup. Beneath the images, I wrote only one paragraph. Ethan planned to leave me for his ex-girlfriend before learning my company had been acquired. He is now searching for legal ways to invalidate the prenup he insisted we sign. I won't be discussing this further. I simply believe both families deserve to know the truth before false stories begin. I press send. Seconds later, the phone exploded. Reddit notifications appeared first. This post has been deleted. This comment has been removed. This account no longer exists. Too late. The evidence already existed in 5 different places. Then came the calls. Ethan. Again. Again. His mother. His father. Unknown numbers. I activated Do Not Disturb. The driver opened the rear door. Hotel? Yes. The St. Regis. The city lights blurred beyond the window as we drove downtown. For the first time in years, I wasn't wondering how to save my relationship. I was wondering how peaceful tomorrow might finally become. That answer arrived much sooner than I expected. At 11:30 the following morning, while I sat quietly eating breakfast inside the hotel restaurant, the lobby erupted with shouting. I didn't even need to look up. I already knew who had found me. At exactly 11:30 the next morning, the hotel lobby exploded into chaos. I was halfway through a croissant, reviewing emails from my attorney, when I heard someone shouting my name. Lorenza! Several guests looked toward the entrance. I didn't. I already knew. Footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Then Ethan appeared beside my table. His hair was uncombed. His shirt was wrinkled. Dark circles hung beneath bloodshot eyes. He looked as though he hadn't slept since discovering my note. Lorenza. He leaned against the table, trying to catch his breath. You can't just disappear. I calmly folded my tablet shut. I already did. My parents saw everything. So did yours. You sent those screenshots to everyone. Yes. My father nearly had a heart attack. I looked at him without emotion. My concern for your father's blood pressure ended sometime around your Reddit confession. He glanced around nervously. People were watching. Hotel staff had already begun paying attention. He lowered his voice. Can we please talk somewhere private? We're already talking. He sat across from me without asking. His hands shook. That post. It wasn't real. It was creative writing. I raised one eyebrow. Creative writing? Yes. People invent stories on Reddit all the time. You just happened to invent the exact acquisition price. 5.2 million. You just happened to invent Vanessa. You accidentally described our apartment. My insomnia. The prenup. Our relationship. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. I was venting. I exaggerated. You know how online forums are. No. I know exactly how screenshots work. Silence. He tried another approach. Lorenza, I love you. I've always loved you. I almost smiled. Interesting. You remembered that very quickly after the wire transfer cleared. His face tightened. That's unfair. Is it? 3 weeks ago you called my company a childish fantasy. 2 days later you resigned from your job to manage money you didn't earn. He looked away. I was excited. You were greedy. He slammed his hand softly against the table. I supported you for years. There it is. What? The investment argument. You weren't supporting me. You were calculating a return. His expression darkened. You can't erase everything I did. I paid rent. I believed in you. I quietly opened one screenshot, scrolled to one particular comment, then rotated the phone toward him. I only stayed because leaving before the payout would have been financially stupid. He stared at the screen. His face turned pale. I didn't mean. You wrote it. I was angry. You were honest. Another long silence settled between us. Then his tone changed completely. He reached across the table. I'm begging you. Please. We can fix this. We'll go to counseling. We'll start over. I'll cut Vanessa out completely. You already planned to. What? According to your own post. You wanted the money, then the divorce. His shoulders collapsed. He looked smaller somehow, almost defeated. I made a terrible mistake. Yes. I wasn't thinking. No. You were thinking very carefully. That's what frightened me. He wiped his face. I don't know what else to say. You don't need to say anything. My attorney already has. Almost on cue, my phone vibrated. A message from Harrison. Divorce petition finalized, ready for filing. Perfect timing. I looked back at Ethan. I've already signed. His breathing stopped for a second. What? The divorce paperwork. You already filed? I already accepted reality. His voice cracked. You didn't even fight for us. The sentence almost made me laugh. I fought for us for 3 years. You fought for us for 14 days after $5.2 million. The truth finally landed. Not dramatically, quietly. He realized there was nothing left to negotiate, nothing left to manipulate, nothing left to save. His eyes hardened. So that's it? You're throwing away a marriage over one stupid Reddit post? I leaned forward. No. The Reddit post didn't destroy our relationship. It simply documented its cause of death. His jaw tightened. You think you're so smart. I think your prenup was brilliantly written. It protected exactly the person you wanted it to protect. You. And today, it protects me. For the first time since sitting down, the desperation disappeared. Something colder replaced it. You'll end up alone. I'd rather be alone than admired only after becoming valuable. Hotel security quietly approached our table. One manager smiled politely. Ma'am, is everything all right? I nodded. Yes. My meeting is over. The manager turned toward Ethan. Sir, I'm going to ask you to leave. Ethan looked at me one last time. There was no love left in his eyes, only disbelief. He honestly thought I would become the safety net waiting beneath his fall. Instead, he had just discovered the ground. The divorce moved faster than anyone expected. When the person demanding the prenup is the same person trying to destroy it later, judges tend to appreciate irony. Harrison, my attorney, called 3 days after the hotel confrontation. You'll enjoy this. I doubt it. Ethan contacted 4 different law firms. And? Every one of them declined after reviewing the agreement and the Reddit evidence. I smiled for the first time in weeks. He actually built the wall he's trapped behind. Exactly. The attorney who drafted it did exceptional work. He protected the wrong person. No, I replied quietly. He protected the right one. Life settled into something wonderfully ordinary. I purchased a quiet condominium overlooking the river. Not because it was extravagant, because it finally felt like home. No criticism, No walking on eggshells. No wondering whether the person beside me secretly wished they were somewhere else. With the acquisition money, I launched a venture capital firm focused entirely on first-time software founders. Every entrepreneur who walked into my office reminded me of the woman I had been only months earlier. Tired, undervalued, still believing in impossible things. Helping them became far more rewarding than spending money ever could. Meanwhile, Ethan wasn't finished. Since I had blocked every possible way to reach me, he turned toward my parents. 2 weeks after the hotel incident, I invited Mom and Dad to celebrate at their favorite steakhouse. Halfway through dinner, my father suddenly sighed. I was wondering how long it would take. I turned. Ethan stood several feet away. He looked dramatically different. The expensive jackets had disappeared. His confidence had disappeared with them. He approached cautiously. Lorenza, please. We need to talk. I calmly returned my attention to my dinner. We don't. He looked toward my parents instead. Mr. and Mrs. Scott, please help me. I made a terrible mistake. I love your daughter. Mom slowly placed her wine glass on the table. The soft click echoed louder than his pleading. We read everything. She spoke quietly. The Reddit posts. The comments. The messages. You called our daughter a burden. You planned to leave her. You only changed your mind after the money arrived. He swallowed. I wasn't thinking clearly. Dad finally spoke. No. You were thinking very clearly. You just didn't expect her to find out. Ethan looked desperate. I supported her. Mom's expression hardened. No. You tolerated her while expecting failure. Those aren't the same thing. He turned toward me again. Lorenza. I've ended things with Vanessa. I've been seeing a therapist. I know I don't deserve another chance. But please, just let me explain. I finally looked directly at him. Where is Vanessa? His shoulders dropped. What? The woman worth destroying our relationship for. Where is she? His eyes filled with shame. She didn't want a relationship. She said I misunderstood everything. I nodded slowly, exactly as I expected. You thought you were climbing upward. You were only letting go of the only person who actually stood beside you. His breathing became uneven. I know. I was stupid. I've lost everything. No. You lost exactly what you chose to risk. There was a difference. He reached toward me instinctively. I leaned back before his hand reached the table. I need you. The words sounded painfully sincere, but sincerity arriving after consequences is not the same as integrity before them. No. You need someone to rescue you. I'm no longer available. Tears filled his eyes. I still love you. I answered honestly. I believe you think you do. But I don't believe you loved me when loving me required believing in someone with nothing. Silence. Then Mom stood. She walked around the table until she stood beside me. My daughter spent 3 years proving herself to someone who had already decided she wasn't enough. She looked directly at Ethan. She'll never have to do that again. Dad signaled quietly toward the restaurant manager, who had already noticed the conversation. Within seconds, security approached politely. Sir? We'll need to ask you to leave. Ethan didn't argue. He looked at me one final time. There was no anger left, only realization. He finally understood something success had taught me months earlier. Money had never changed me. It simply revealed who everyone already was. 18 months later, I traveled to New York for a fintech summit. My investment firm had grown far beyond anything I imagined. I was scheduled to speak on a panel about funding early-stage founders. Afterward, I waited in the Mandarin Oriental Lounge for Daniel. We had been together for almost a year. He was an architect, calm, curious. The first man who asked about my ideas before asking about my achievements. He also had no idea how much money I had until months after we started dating. When I finally told him, he shrugged. That's nice. Do you want dessert? I knew then that I had finally found peace. As I answered emails, someone stopped beside my table. Lorenza. I looked up. It took several seconds to recognize him. Ethan wore a hotel event staff uniform, black slacks, white shirt, a tray balanced carefully in one hand. The confidence that once filled every room had disappeared completely. Hello, Ethan. He shifted awkwardly. I saw your name on today's guest list. I work here now. Okay. He waited, apparently expecting another question. None came. I heard your company is doing well. It is. I read the Forbes interview. I'm happy things worked out. Thank you. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he whispered, Do you ever think about us? I looked at him carefully, really looked at him, then answered with complete honesty. No. His expression collapsed. Not ever? I gently shook my head. The woman who loved you stopped existing the night I read your Reddit post. She never came back. Before he could answer, Daniel arrived, carrying 2 coffees. He smiled warmly. Ready? I stood immediately. Ready. Daniel naturally reached for my hand. As we walked away, Ethan quietly stepped aside without another word. I never looked back. Because ghosts only follow people who keep turning around.